Okay, so today the goal is to talk a little bit about wall types. I'm not going to get into how to create the stacked wall here tonight because there's the video that goes through it pretty thoroughly, and a lot of it's review except putting the two walls on top of each other. So we've created wall type where we've created our layers. So those are things you guys should already know how to do. It's just a matter of making two of them and utilizing the stacked wall tool in the wall tool command. But I would like to kind of discuss other things that you can incorporate into walls. We briefly touched upon wall openings and editing the profile of a wall to create an opening, but we haven't really talked about what else can be hosted on a wall, like doors, windows, other curtain walls, and wall and face-based families, which are like lights, or I don't know, what other good examples? Like that chalkboard thing, which eventually will be part of the final, exam thing, final assignment, or the fire flashy thing over there. At any rate. So, and then we're going to jump into what I like to call in-class assignment 4, which is due tonight. Yeah, it's actually not that complicated. It's fairly easy. Sounds like it's going to be complicated, but it's basically creating a custom surface pattern for your walls and floors. So like in elevation view, if you want to show a particular type of panel system that maybe is really difficult to model in 3D, but you really want to show it in your elevation or your interior elevation, or maybe I think in second year, third year in studio, they start to talk about like expansion joints in concrete on the floor and thinking about those patterns. And so this is a way for you to create your own custom patterns and apply them to your surfaces, so that when you print your 2D line work, basically it comes up on there already, and you don't have to like take that into another software and add more line work or whatever. It's kind of just there. I'm hurting today. I haven't done anything yet. So let's go ahead and open up a new project. Yes, Logan?
Where did you say the assignment 2 part 1 the videos? What?
So part 1, there's a video on YouTube. It's called Stacked Walls. Some sort. Should be on YouTube. Should be on the YouTube website. And I think it's like a 25-minute video or something like that that talks about how to create a stacked wall. And then you'll use that stacked wall in all of these. Okay? So I'm going to go back to this lovely page, Recent Files, and create a new architectural template. And I'm just going to go to our wall tool, and I'm just going to use this basic generic 8-inch wall. Excuse me. And I'm just going to draw a wall. Doesn't really matter how long it is. And so today we're going to talk about kind of a few of these tools: the door tool, the window tool, and how to embed a curtain wall into your wall itself, and kind of loading in families as well. So instead of cutting a hole in the wall to create a doorway, you can click on the wall tool in the architecture tab, and it brings up basically a door that you can place on either side of your wall, and it's hosted to the wall, and so it cuts through the wall automatically. And just like our wall tool, when you select this, there in theory would be a lot more, but the template only has one in it. And so you can load in families here through each tool type. So in the door family type, when you select it, and it typically goes to the modify place door, you can load a family in. This particular way, you have to load in doors. Like, you can't load in any other family type because it's specifically wanting you to load in a door family. And so they have kind of some standard doors, a lot of standard doors in here, but each one of them is basically a parametric family, just more complicated. And so I'm going to just open up the curtain wall single glass door, and you'll notice that it's not in here, and that's because you have to place it on a curtain wall, and we don't have one, and so that's a little more complicated. But just to show you, like, these are all a bunch of families, right? And it's similar to our 2D our 2D profile in respects to, we made 2 or 3 different family types of various sizes and then loaded it into our project, and then they appeared. Well, it's the same concept with doors or any other type of family. So whether that's structural or windows, and so you can take where are my doors here? We can start to edit these. Edit these similar to you would be editing your customized 2D profile, where they have these preset thickness, height, trims, trim widths, radiuses. These are all parameters that they've set up for this family type. And so you can start to either manipulate these families once you kind of understand what they're doing, and make your own custom doors, or you can just start kind of changing the numbers, and the door changes in proportions similar to your profile as it changed proportions. So it's just kind of getting an understanding of, we were doing something fairly basic, but this is now taking it kind of to the next level of what these parameters can start doing and defining for you. Just kind of give you a general idea of this program is very heavily based on parameters and what you can do with them. Okay, so that's my little spiel about parameters and why they're important to kind of understand what's going on. You can start editing other families that are kind of in the default library to make your own custom things. So you can place walls, or you can place doors on walls. You can also go ahead and start to place windows within a wall system. And again, this is the only one that's in the template file. There's different sizes of it, of course. But if you load in families, you go to the Load Family tab in the Modify Place window. You can open up the windows here and get a variety of windows that are fairly basic. I mean, they're double hung with trim, ellipses, you name it. There's a good variety though. But the other cool thing is, I like to use this a little bit more than windows, is you can embed curtain walls into your wall. So I basically clicked on my wall tab here and created a wall and scrolled down to my curtain systems. And I'm just going to pick the exterior glazing. Storefronts give you kind of a set of, it already has mullions placed in it, where the exterior glazing doesn't. You can kind of customize it a little bit easier or edit the family type so that you can place your own curtain grid and spacing. But you can start to draw inside a wall, and it gives me a warning that says, you know, you've got walls overlapping. But in our modified tab, we can actually cut the curtain wall into the wall that we drew, and so you can start to create. You set that to level 2, and also constrain this curtain to level 2. But you can see you can set the base offset, and so you could start to create your own window. And on top of that, which I forgot to show the class before, is you can edit the profile of that. So, you know, for instance, you want some crazy looking window in here. You can start to do that, right? With curtain wall or curtain systems, or you know, maybe a curved window that, you know, does just some weird shape. I don't know. I'm not really thinking that far outside the box here, but you can see that you can start making you know, pretty custom window types, and then apply mullions to them by using the mullion tool, and you can create more grid lines within that using the grid line tool, similar to what we were using last class. Yeah.
How'd you cut the wall to show the curtain?
So in level 1, once I drew the curtain wall, in the modified tab, you can use the cut geometry command to select the wall and then the curtain wall. And that basically embeds one into the other. So I just have placed some random mullions with, or curtain grid with the curtain grid tool, and then you can create your mullions, and you can see that starting to look like a pretty darn custom window with little effort, you know. So there are lots of ways to kind of navigate the software to do what you want. I'm going to draw a second curtain wall in here. I'm going to draw it a little bit further over, and again it's telling me, oh, these walls overlap, so I'm getting a warning, but it's one that you can ignore. And again, using the cut command, you can cut that out. The other kind of cool thing is once you have a window and maybe you want to repeat it, and you know, it's a fairly custom window, you can go ahead and copy it over and place it in the wall again, and go ahead and cut it out again. So now I have two of the identical. The other kind of cool thing is you could make a copy of it, you know, hovering over it with the control key and make a copy, and now we can rotate that, you know, say to another wall. And you know, if there was another wall here, I could embed that into another wall, so I don't have to keep redrawing it over and over again. But I think, I guess what I had showed the first class was basically how to place a door in a curtain wall. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that here real quick. I'm going to put my top constraint down to level 2 on this guy, and I'm going to edit this wall, curtain wall exterior glazing. I'm going to duplicate it, and for now I'm just going to say exterior glazing 2. Typically you want to rename it to something that you'll recognize and remember. And I'm going to delete the vertical and horizontal grid system so that I can place my own custom system in. And it's saying, oh, you're wanting to delete these? Yeah, go ahead and delete the grid lines. So now I just have a sheet of glass. And I can place a curtain, a grid about the width of a door, you know, and by you have to hover over the edge of the window to get that to come up. And so with the mullions, maybe it's about 7.2 by 3.2. So I have this kind of, it's looking like a door, but there's no door there. If I tab through, hovering over this thing, you can see I can select the glazing area. And then in my properties, because I loaded in that door, that curtain door, it now appears here as a curtain wall single glass door. And so I can select that and change the glass panel type to being a door. And then it acts similar to this door in the sense you can flip these around to different sizes with different sides with these arrows. You can do the same thing with these doors. They have those similar parameters. And then just to make this a little more realistic, you know, let's throw some mullions on it and maybe delete that mullion at the bottom with a door threshold. So it's more like a door threshold. But that's, again, you could start making your own custom profiles, right? And then apply maybe a threshold, doorway threshold that looks like a real doorway threshold and apply it to that mullion. So you can start to customize stuff that way as well. Also drawing custom profiles for your mullions as well with a family type. Other things we can host on walls. If we go to our Insert tab, this is the second place where you can load families into your project. And now that I'm in the Insert tab loading families, I can load anything basically in here. Or if you download something from Revit City is a really good source, Autodesk Seek's a really good source. This is how you would import those family types into your project by going to wherever you navigate to where you save that stuff. I'm just going to grab a light and do an architectural internal light, and let's just do a scone flat round similar to last class. And when I load it in, like, nothing happens, and that's because we're just loading in families. We're not actually in a tool, whereas when we were going directly from the tool to load in families, they would instantly appear after you load it in. You'll find that this component tool, if you select on it, you'll now see my light here. And it's probably best to place it in a floor plan view, but you can see how I have a little circle with a cross through it saying, oh, you can't place that there, but when I get close to a wall, it allows me to place it, and I can place it on the interior or the exterior side of the wall. If I select it, it has a little arrow that flips one side to the other, similar to changing your wall from exterior to interior, or similar to a door, which way does it swing? Same with a window, right? So you can do that kind of with all of these elements. Even with a curtain panel, you can tell it which side's exterior, which side's interior. So just going to 3D view, you can see that those lights are now hosted on the wall plane. So there are other, and you can also do it with face-based families. So if you're making a custom family and you choose face-based to create it in, it's going to be placing it based on a face. So you can place it on a wall, a floor, a ceiling, a roof. Yeah, that's fairly thorough, right?
Is your face?
Your face. You can place it on your face. Yeah, so that pretty much sums up kind of the wall, the components that can be incorporated into a wall, or families that can be incorporated into a wall. Let's now start to look at how we can customize and maybe make this look like a panelized system without having to put reveals on it and things like that, but just kind of 2D patterns that you can place on this thing. So if I select this wall type and I edit it and I go ahead and duplicate it because I don't want to mess up the generic template, right? So we always have that template to go back to. We edit the structure. I'm just simply going to add an exterior side, exterior face to this, and let's just call it a finish and give it a thickness of 2 inches. And it doesn't really matter, just kind of showing you the tool. So that could be like a 1/4 inch or whatever. It's just the most exterior layer of your wall. And if we go to apply a new material, we don't necessarily want to change a surface pattern of a stock material, and it's probably a customized kind of paneling system that you're creating. So I'm going to use the circle with a plus here to go ahead and create a new material. And that puts a default new material in my project browser, material browser here, which I can right click and rename that custom pattern. It's probably spelled wrong, doesn't matter. And we want to apply a surface pattern to it. And if you click on patterns, you'll notice there's drafting patterns and model patterns. The main difference between these two is drafting patterns, pretty sure about this, but not 100%. I don't use them much. I stick with model patterns. But in your view properties, there is that coarse, fine, and medium kind of settings here. With the model patterns, it doesn't matter what setting you're in. It should always show. But if you use a drafting pattern, you have to be in a specific, I think it's coarse, in order to see the drafting pattern. And when you get further along and you're like in an elevation, you want to see the structural beams and everything, you want to have it in the fine viewport so that they come up. Like in the coarse, like structural beams just appear as lines. And so you always want to be, when you're doing a custom pattern, you want to do a model-based pattern. And they give us a good variety of patterns here, but maybe we want to do a larger panel you know, that's like 24 inches by 12 feet, you know, something fairly large. They don't really have an option for that. But you can create a new pattern, and the best way to do it is to create a custom one. And it asks to basically import a pattern type. And this is where we get into kind of the fun stuff. So we don't have one at the moment to load in, but let's make one. And so I'm going to set Revit aside for a second, and I'm going to show you basically where they store the file that holds all these patterns in it. And we can copy this block 8 by 16 and make some changes to it to make it our custom pattern. So if we go to your computer, my computer, and go to the C drive, we want to navigate to program files. And then once you're in program files, you'll navigate to Autodesk. And if you're using Revit 2014, click Revit 2014. If you're in Revit 2015, click Revit 2015. And then data, navigate to the data file. And you'll notice you've got two P8 AutoCAD hatch pattern definition files here. One's metric and one's not. Let's go ahead and open up the one that's not metric, and make sure you're opening it with Notepad or some type of text file. So this is the coding basically to create what those patterns are doing. And there's some pretty complicated ones in here that we're not really going to touch upon. We're just going to start to look at our 8 by 16 inch block here. And we don't want to actually edit this file. We just want to take a snippet out of this and put it in a new file to edit. Because if you edit this file and get it screwed up, you're going to end up corrupting the file that Revit looks at for all its patterns. And so you don't want to create patterns within this, but you can use one of these as a template to create your own pattern. So I'm going to go in and highlight the 8 by 16 inch block and get the asterisks to the -8 here highlighted. And some of you guys might have a bunch of other colons and some spaces. The only colon that you want is the one that you see that's highlighted here. All the other ones that may be sitting off to the side, you don't want those. And we're going to go ahead and Control-C that to copy it. And we're going to create a new file, a new Notepad file. And I'm going to Control-V to paste it into a new Notepad file. This also is nice because when we load it in, just our one pattern is going to show up. Whereas if we loaded in the other file, all the patterns would show up and you'd have to scroll down through that tiny little window to find your custom pattern. It's really annoying. So we have our one custom pattern, and we want to edit the name of it. This you want to leave the star there, and we're gonna what are we gonna label this? Curtain panel or custom. Now let's just do panel 24 by 144. And we're also going to edit this name to being the same thing. So this is depicting whether it's model a model based or drafting. So if you had selected the drafting one, this wouldn't say model, it would say drafting. You want to make sure that you have the model one. This first line is basically denoting the spacing horizontally. So this thing is basically spaced, this line is spaced every 8 inches, is what it's saying. But we want it to be spaced every 24 inches to make a 24 inch, a 2 foot panel, right? So we're going to change that to 24. And then the second line is denoting the vertical lines and how they're spaced. And so the 90 is, okay, we're turning this horizontal line to a vertical, and so that's basically denoting the angle. I'm not 100% sure why the double zeros are in there, but it's kind of like a spacing thing. And as you recall, like these all say 8, and this one said 8, and it was depicting a 8 by 16 inch block, and it was spaced, offset 8 inches on every line. So this first one we want to change to 24. And I played with this a lot last night, and it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me either, but this is how we make our 24 by 144 panel. The other thing is that once you know how to load these into your project, you can again go on to Revit City or any other Autodesk Seek and download other patterns that people have made and insert them into your project. So I'm not saying that I know a whole lot about this, but it's something cool to know, and you can start to utilize it in other ways. This one is basically half of 16. So we want ours to be one half of 144. So 72 inches. And then repeating the pattern of 24 and negative 24. And now we can go ahead and do a save as. And it wants to initially save it as a text document. We actually want to select all files. And I've already created this panel, and I keep mine under Revit Family Surface Patterns. And so there's some other patterns that I've downloaded off Revit City that someone else made and has a better understanding of it than I do. But I'm just going to select my 24 by 144 panel so I know that that's what it is. And the end of it needs to be a .pat file because it's a pattern file, and that's what Revit reads. So I can go ahead and save that. And I already have one. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Now I can go back to Revit and select import on my add surface pattern. And you want to navigate to wherever you saved yours. Open it, and you notice that what we named it here is showing up here. And the import scale, you always want it to be 1. If you change that, it would read different in your scaled drawings, because Revit automatically, when you select a type of scale in your viewport, scales everything to that for your viewport. So you want to leave this import scale as 1, and units are grayed out. You can't change those. Hit OK. And now we have our fill pattern in here, and we can select OK, and OK, OK, and OK one more time. And now you'll see this pattern. If you're in hidden line, graphics, and it shouldn't matter which one of these you're in. I usually leave mine in fine so it shows the most detail. You'll start to see that come up. So what is that, my south elevation? Or is it my north elevation? It is my north elevation. So you can see you can start to apply a custom curtain, a custom surface pattern to your walls. You could also, it's material based. So if I tab through here and selected my curtain wall glazing, if I edited the type of the glass, right, I could just apply a surface pattern to that glass. So if you wanted to see like an etching or something in it, you could apply your same custom pattern. I'm just going to apply the one that we made to it. But so now that pattern's imprinted in the glazing. So like maybe you have you know, a giant screen wall. You don't really necessarily need to model, you just need to 2D represent it. You could potentially use one piece of curtain glass and apply your surface pattern to it and utilize it in your drawings for your elevations and stuff. And it comes up in sections, so interior stuff as well. And you can also apply it to floors because it's material based. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the floor command and draw a rectangle. And I'm going to edit my floor type, duplicate it, add a layer to my floor type. Maybe it's only 0.25 of an inch thick. And I'm just going to find my, what was it, custom, I think I spelled it wrong. Right, custom pattern. And you can start applying it to your floor as well. So maybe you have a custom paving pattern that you want to utilize. And you don't want to have to draw all those lines, you know. It's pretty nifty. At any rate, let's stop here for a few minutes and get everybody on board with that. And I'm going to go back to this folder or file here, and basically the goal is to create a roof that has a flat roof that has a minor slope in it that slopes to one point. And it's fairly, it's not very complicated, but it's something you can't achieve through the commands that you'll see how to make these roofs. So I'm going to go to my level 1, and I think I'm just going to copy these 4 walls over so that I have some walls to work with. And I'm going to go to my roof by footprint and select that. and it's asking me what level I want to draw this roof on. If we had more levels in here, just stick with level 2 for now. I think that roof 1 level is referring to that. To this roof, whatever they're called, mansard roofs. So I'm in my wall command, or I'm sorry, my roof command, and I'm just going to go ahead and select my rectangular roof, and I'm going to click the inside, upper left inside of the wall to lower left inside of the wall, and click. So basically, it's like like there'll be a parapet and a flat roof, but we want the flat roof to drain to one point. So you'll notice that there are these triangles here, and they basically represent their slope sign. So if I select on this particular line, it's telling me that right now it's designated as a 9-inch by 12-inch roof slope, 9 by 912, and that also comes up in my properties of my roof as a default 912 roof. If you think about this is like a hinge to a door, so this line is representing a hinge here like this, and this thing is kicked up to a 9 by 12. So that's happening with all 4 of those. And so if we were to draw this particular roof, it would be a hipped roof. Yeah, a hipped roof. So because all 4 come to a point basically. But we don't want that. So I can select all of my lines here and click in the options tab to undefine the slope of those, so that it's basically going to be a flat roof. And if I finish the model by selecting the check button, you can see that I basically made a flat roof. I'm going to tab through and grab those, and I'm going to change my height to this roof 1 just so that we have kind of a parapet look to the roof. And the goal is to get this thing to drain to one corner. And so if I select it in my Modify Roofs tab here, I have what's called Modify Sub-Elements. And if I select that, it basically puts a dashed line all the way around the roof, and it gives me corner points. And I could select the dashed line. You'll see a temporary dimension here, and also these grab bars. You can specify a specific dimension by clicking that and say -2 inches, and that's doesn't really show it, so maybe -6 inches. And you see that edge starts to drop lower than this edge. And we could also pull this thing up and down as well. And I'm just going to set that to 0 because it's really not what we want to do, but just demonstrating what this tool can do for you. We can tab through till we select just one of these points, and it gives us the same options. We can click on this temporary dimension, and let's just do like 1 foot. You know what? 1 foot goes below the actual thickness of the roof. So let's stick with 6 inches. And now if we go back to our elevation view, under our quick access toolbar, we can draw a section, and just 1 click, a second click, and you're out of the command. You can flip this section back and forth similar to the wall command or any other when you have it selected. You can also say you want more in the view of the section, right? We can do that, or extend the depth of the section. And then we could also grab these little modified nodes here and pull this out Maybe we don't want that line cutting through, so we can go ahead and, to not muddy the drawing up, right? But we can right click on that and say go to view, or you can find the section here in your project browser as section 3. And if I scroll in here, you can see that I now have a slope in this roof. Can you see that in this view? What's that? That's the wrong one. Thanks. There you go. You can see there's a slight slope in this roof now. So that's how you make a flat roof slope to one point. Okay. A couple other kind of cool things about that tool. So if I select it, I can add more points. So you can see how this is in the picture here, what that's doing. You can also add split lines. And so if you wanted the roof maybe to drain to the center, you can create split lines, and then it puts a point at the crosshairs that you can change again with that elevation. And then pick support is where if you have structure underneath it and you want the roof to conform to the structure, you can start to pick the structure and the roof will conform to it. And so it's another way of making a butterfly roof if you have structure already there in place. And then to reset the shape, use the reset shape command. And again, you can modify this at any time using the modified sub-element tool and selecting these points or these lines. This same tool works with floors. So if you have a floor that you want to change, or like an exterior concrete, you can start to manipulate it to work with the landscape. It's not necessarily the best way to do that, but you can do it. So at any rate, that shows you that tool. If you guys want to stick around for we have 5 minutes left, but if you want to stick around for 5 minutes more, I can show you the double sloped butterfly roof as well. So I'm going to start it. Hopefully you guys are interested enough to stick around and wait for me to complete it. So I'm going to go back to my level 1, and I'm just going to tab through till I get these guys. And I'm going to make a copy of these again, so I have a roof to start with. And then I'm going to create an elevation marker here against this east side, so that I can take a look at this specific elevation. And I'm going to go to my elevation 1A here, and I'm going to utilize this elevation to draw a reference plane that then I'll work off of. And so if I go to my architecture tab, the very far end, we've got work planes where you can set your work plane or show it or draw a work plane. I'm going to pick the draw reference plane, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw like at a 3% grade. And then I'm going to select that reference plane and name it. Custom butterfly. You have to name your reference plane in order to pick it later on. So you have to give it a name and its properties. So now that I have that, I can go to my components tab and click the down arrow. And today I've showed you could place a component that you load in, as a family, but you can also model in place components. And so if I select that, it brings up a dialog box that says, okay, you want to model this. What type of category or family do you want to model? And so it's pretty important to understand what we're doing. We're creating a roof, right? And so if we were creating a wall, custom wall that had some crazy angle on it that we couldn't get with the regular wall tool, and we still wanted to place stuff by face or by wall onto it, you have to categorize it as a wall. Well, we want to categorize this as a roof because walls attach to roofs. If we didn't and just did a generic object, we couldn't attach our walls to this. So I'm going to select roof, say OK, and now I'm going to set my reference plane using pick a plane, and right now it says none, but if I scroll down, here's my reference plane that I just created, which is the custom butterfly reference plane. If I click OK, it's going to tell me you're in the wrong drawing view to draw on this plane. So what I want to do is switch to my level 1 view. And so I'm drawing on that plane, but I'm drawing on it on level 1. And so we can create extrusions, blends, revolves, sweep, swept blends, similar to our masses that we made, except now they kind of give you default names, right, of what you're creating. And I want to create a sweep along a path. So I can sketch a path here by snapping to my center point to center point, make sure that I'm on the center line. And I'm just going to extend this a little bit out on both sides. And I think you can probably start to put some dimensions in here if you wanted to get an exact dimension to that point and know exactly how far you're extending out past your wall. But it's not worth getting into that at the moment. It's just kind of showing you how to utilize this tool. So we press the check button, and now we have an option here to edit the profile. We could pick one, right? If we had made a custom profile that looked like a butterfly roof, we could select it here. But I'm just going to draw it in by using the edit profile. You could also load a profile similar to our wall reveal profile or a generic model profile that we've previously drawn, but we haven't previously drawn one, so I'm just going to do edit profile. And if I switch to hopefully the south elevation here, you'll see a set of reference planes similar to what you would find in your generic family or the pattern-based family or any of those family types. And so those are reference planes that we kind of want to utilize to draw this this sweep that we're going to sweep along that path that we just drew. So I'm just going to use the center point as my start point, and I can start to draw what's starting to look like a butterfly roof. And you could get more complicated like with this if you wanted to extend this thing down a little bit, right? You can start to make it look kind of even more unique, right, if you wanted to. But now I can just kind of select those lines and I can mirror them along an axis, can mirror them. And now I've got a closed circuit loop here that I can press the check button and the check button again. And if I switch to my 3D view, you can start to see now that that's sloping in two directions. So it's sloping to the center, but then it's also sloping back to this point. If I finish the model, I can go ahead and tab through to select all my walls, and I can attach the top of the wall to my roof. And so now it's, you know, a different way, and you can make a pretty unique roof doing that, and you don't necessarily have to have it sloping in one direction, but you could, you know, you could do all sorts of cool things with that tool. So that's not part of the this is not part of the homework assignment. I just wanted to show you guys how to do it so it's in your toolbox. But you will want to create these 11 roofs. These 10 have individual tutorials. There's a guy that walks through them, and there is he does talk his way through them as well, so it's not just a visual thing. But there isn't one on this flat roof, so but you're going to want to add that to your roofs. Okay? Promise, that was 5 minutes. Done. End of class. I'll post this video to YouTube.
That's date night, right?
Or you
Yeah.
wanna do
And
the
then the wall thing?